The movie begins in a prison cell, where a man named Franck Adrien is spending time with his wife. Frank seems to have a reputation inside the prison. He rooms with a guy named Jean-Louis Maurel, who was charged with assault and is a guy who keeps to himself. He seems to be a hot topic amongst the cellmates. At night, Adrien finds Maurel's diary and goes through it. Due to his innocent personality, Adrien thinks that maybe Maurel was innocent after all. The door to their cell opens up at night, and 3 men Adrien had an encounter with make their way into the cell. They tell him to move out and they beat Maurel up. Thinking of his innocence, Adrien makes his way to the cell and a fight breaks out. The prison guards make their way inside and break the fight. The scene shifts to a visitation time. Adrien informs his wife Anna about last night's events. He also tells her about the added sentence. Worried, Anna asks about the whereabouts of the money Adrien had stolen. She wanted to use it to pay for his expenses. Not trusting her, he refuses to tell her. At the same time, Maurel's wife, Christine, informs him about the charges of assault being dropped. While exiting the prison, Anna has an encounter with Christine, who has a polite conversation with her. The scene changes to inside the prison, while the prisoners enjoy a classical music show. Novik, Adrien's partner, shoves a screwdriver inside his ear, demanding the position of the stolen money. Giving him a fake address, Adrien falls to the ground. As he gains his consciousness, he finds Maurel sitting next to him. Maurel informs him about the situation. Novik got a week's solitary, but Adrien had been out for 4 days. That gave Adrien 3 days to get out of prison. Maurel questions Frank about the money, telling him that the entire prison knew and he even offered to help Frank. Questioning him on how he could help, Maurel tells him that he was being released. Maurel gives Frank his phone number as a thank you. About to leave, Frank asks Maurel to call Anna and warn her about Novik. He also tells him that she should go see his father and that he will help him out. It is revealed that the stolen cash was inside his father's grave. In the next scene, Maurel is seen leaving his cell, but is collecting hair out of a comb and stores it into an empty medicine box. He leaves prison and meets up with his wife. A few days later, Frank is visited by a retired officer named Manuel Carrega, who questions him about Maurel. He confronts Adrien about the dangers of the man. The scene shifts to Maurel at Anna's house, where he keeps eyeing Frank's daughter, Amelie. Maurel is seen behind Anna when the scene changes to Frank trying to call his wife. At night, a cop disguised as a prostitute is seen following a woman to a man named Leo. The woman is introduced as Claire Linné. The scene changes back to the prison where the prison guard is paid. Frank gets ganged up by his cellmates. He beats all 3 of them and steals the prison guard's clothes. Frank tricks the guards into opening the gates and he escapes. The police are informed by his escape and Clary is assigned to the case. The scene shifts to a supermarket where Maurel is seen taking an interest in a girl named Melissa. He tries to lure her but fails as her mom calls her. While leaving, he finds out that Frank had escaped prison and was wanted. He moves to his car where his wife was waiting for him. It seemed like they had Frank's daughter along with them. While looking for possible clues, Clary's team devises a plan and sets out to a location of an old apartment. At the same time, Adrien enters the apartment in search of his wife. He doesn't find her, but the police arrive. They enter the apartment but don't find Frank. They know that he had been to the apartment due to the blood splatters in the sink. Clary figures Frank's position and corners him, but he escapes through the window. The team chases Frank down a highway where after a long run, he escapes by jumping on a train. Something seemed to be driving Frank's escape, and Clary wanted to find out. The scene changes to where Frank is seen taking a bus and to a graveyard. He finds his stash of money gone, but he also finds his wife dead inside. He called Maurel to question him. Maurel justifies the reasoning for killing his wife. As the call ends, Maurel is seen in an abandoned shed opening the medicine box. Clary and her team put out information and try to rule Frank's next position. They locate the abandoned shed, and Frank's DNA is found on the stuff Maurel had planted the night before. Police arrive the next morning and find a dead body around the shed. The person seemed to be a girl named Julia, who had disappeared 2 years ago. Clary, still suspicious, finds it odd for Frank to be a killer and tries to investigate. Frank pays Maurel a visit to find more clues. Maurel, believing him, intends to help him out and informs Frank about all Maurel's previous victims. To help him locate Maurel, Manuel goes to the police station, but while he's at it, the truck driver that had brought Frank to Manuel had informed them about his whereabouts. Acting fast, the police in Luzon are informed and they corner Frank again, but he manages to escape with a gunshot wound. Manuel helps him escape and hands him Maurel's location. Frank jumps out of his car and Manuel crashes his car into the highway. Clary's team arrives at the crash scene, but Luciani decided to take the case out of Clary's hands. Franck is seen running across a field and steals a car. He arrives at the place Manuel told him about. Locating the pharmacy, he finds a place closer to stay for a lookout. He treats his gunshot wound in an empty apartment. Meanwhile, Clary tries to find more information about Franck's history. Maurel and his wife are seen walking in a marketplace where they spot Melissa, the girl from the supermarket. Maurel convinces his wife to abduct the girl. They ask her to show them the way to the doctors when Christine tries to cover her mouth. Sensing the danger, Melissa runs out of the car with Maurel chasing after her. Her run is cut short, with Maurel grabbing and killing the girl. Meanwhile, Clary finds no solid evidence of Franck being the killer. She finds out that Manuel is obsessed with finding dirt against Maurel. The scene cuts to Franck, where he's seen looking out his window. He spots Maurel and makes a run for it. He chases the car and ends up in a mansion in the mountains. Franck, after so long, sees his daughter and decides to take her away. Suspicious of Maurel, Clary makes her way to Chassaigne's to confront him. At night, Franck makes it up to the balcony to Amelie's room. Picking her up, he tries to make it out of the house as quietly as possible. The doorbell rings, and Maurel is seen chatting with Clary. The couple tries to convince her about not having seen Franck, and they assure her to call her as soon as he makes contact with them. Although he answers her questions clearly, it doesn't sit right with Clary. As soon as she leaves, Maurel and his wife catch Franck escaping with his daughter. Christine takes Amelie back while Maurel threatens to shoot him. Clary comes back and shoots at Maurel, barely touching his ear. Taking advantage, Franck knocks him out and runs with Amelie out the door. Meanwhile, the chief is informed about Clary's mission and plans to make it to Maurel's house. Promising to take care of Clary, Maurel rushes after the two. Clary knocks Christine down and makes her way to the two men. Maurel catches up to the two and shoots at Franck, who is standing above a cliff. Franck hangs onto a tree right below the cliff, and as Maurel is about to shoot him, Luciani stops him. Not being able to fool them, Clary shoots Maurel and he falls off a cliff. Thinking that Franck was Julius's killer, her father Robert shoots at Franck and he falls down the cliff as well. 3 months after the incident, Clary is seen walking into a facility where Amelie now lives, and the coordinator shows her the letter that Amelie had received, and that's where the movie ends. Click on one of the two videos on screen right now.